Hello, happy Easter, and welcome to Unpreachy, a podcast from St. John Chrysostom Parish. Today, Father Brian Zumbrum reflects on John chapter 20, verses 1 to 9, the Gospel reading for Easter Sunday, April 20th, 2025.
We are witnesses of all that he did. Of all that he did. You know, it's funny, I used to always just skip ahead to the resurrection part of the witnessing, to the proclamation that he is not here, he has been raised. And yet it's funny, that is such a small part of the story that is shared again and again. A story that included a baptism at the River Jordan and temptations in the desert. A story that included miracles and parables, confrontations with authorities, and scandalous dinner parties. A story that included a final Passover supper and an anguished night of prayer in a garden. A story that included an arrest and a trial, betrayal and torture, abandonment and crucifixion on a lonely hillside outside of town. A story that includes empty tombs and missing bodies. A story that includes locked rooms, dramatic appearances, and new beginnings. All of it they would bear witness to. Mary Magdalene, Peter, John, they would spend their lives telling the story of his life, his death, and his resurrection, always inviting others into the story to see Christ at work and alive in their own stories, so that they too could then go forth and bear witness, so that we could go forth and bear witness. My friends, this is the Great Commission entrusted to each of us who has walked into the church this day, to continue to be witnesses of the Paschal mystery as it continues to unfold in our lives. So when others encounter us and our story, they encounter Christ and Christ's story. And so bear witness, my friends. When a child is welcomed into the world, when one signs the employment offer, when the ring is gently slipped over a finger, when one stands before their first class, sits in front of their first client, or takes their first vitals, proclaim the Christ who rose from the waters with a mission entrusted into his hands. When a hot meal is set before a homeless vet, or a sack of rice is distributed through U.S. aid to a refugee community in a war-torn Sudan, when someone visits an incarcerated immigrant or a terminally ill cancer patient, proclaim the Christ who announced that whatsoever you do for the least of my sisters and brothers, you do for me. When friends gather to watch a game, when sisters grab a cup of coffee, when the colleague remembers your favorite scent for the candle they leave on your desk, proclaim the Christ who reclined at table with Lazarus and Mary and Martha, who laughed and ate, challenged and rested and wept with those he loved. When it's time to say goodbye, as you sit in the dorm rooms surrounded by packed boxes, as the final performance draws to a close, as the clock winds down on your final game, as their happy retirement banner is hung up on the wall, as your child gives you that one last hug before stepping on that bus, climbing back into that car, or ascending the steps onto that flight, proclaim the Christ who broke bread with his friends and disciples, who washed their feet and assured them he would not leave them orphans. When our lives are rent apart by nails plunging into flesh, when the divorce papers come through, when we lose the baby, when we see the post from our friend that stabs us in the back, when we're fired, when the casket lid clicks closed, when the darkness in our head threatens to drown us, proclaim the Christ crucified, whose haunting cry, my God, why have you abandoned me?" still echoes through the ages. when we're confused, unsure of what to do next? Do we say yes? Do we sign the lease? Do we go to school? Do we go back? Proclaim the empty tomb. Proclaim the Christ who is not here. Proclaim the Christ still to be found and encountered. And when new life breaks forth, when hearts are reconciled and wounds are healed, when flowers bloom and families embrace, when anniversaries are marked with smiles and tears, when the world reflects the kingdom that is promised, when alleluias break forth in the land, proclaim the risen Christ, the Christ alive and at work in every moment of our lives, dispelling the darkness, triumphing over sin and death. We are the witnesses, my friends. There is no gospel but the one we proclaim with our lives. So go forth and announce the good news. He is alive. Alleluia, alleluia. May God be praised.
Unpreachy is a production of St. John Chrysostom Parish in Wallingford, Pennsylvania. Visit us at sjcparish.org. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. This podcast was produced by Brendan Lorden with music by Skytoes on Upbeat. Thanks for listening. Be well.